Hey, 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 what's up, Crown Nation? Welcome to Rock the Crown. Welcome, everybody. We are so excited to get down again for another week for you, welcoming all of our men and our women. And today we have a topic that may have you fanning a little bit on yourself, right? Because today we are talking about giving yourself. And what does giving yourself actually mean? And what does it entail? And Siri is trying to tell me something. What you trying to tell me, Siri? No, girl. Okay, so forgiving yourself. And we have, of course, my queen, Nefertari, and we have our special guest, Miss Carole Hamilton. Hey, girl. And just a little bit of a backstory. Carole, we are childhood, way back in the day, in the 80s, right, friends, right? When we were small children. And when I was actually attending Hamilton Park Church of Christ, and Miss Carole was attending, where were you?
Cedar Crest
Church of Christ, right? And so we kind of grew together through our high school years. And in college, everybody went their own way. Right. And then we kind of found our way back in our adult years. And so we have been riding the wave. And I like to see my COC queens, Church of Christ queens. So Miss Carole is one of them. So excited to have her here with us tonight. So let's get down. Now, you want to start it off? What about forgiveness, honey?
So forgiveness is often defined as a deliberate decision to let go of feelings, to let go of anger, resentment, things like that, whether you have it towards someone else or your own self. And so being able to forgive others is much harder than being able to forgive yourself. A lot of times not just the opposite, not being able to forgive others, but to forgive yourself is actually harder on you than forgiving someone else. And sometimes we can be really hard on ourselves, tougher than others to just get over something you can just be having and holding for years, So everybody makes mistakes. We know God created us in a way where we have the ability to make choices. And sometimes our choices maybe we don't make the right choices, but we're human beings. So we seek the guidance, we seek the help and the forgiveness from God first, and then to whoever it is that we've wronged, because we are human and we're going to make mistakes. And so just being able to move on, these things are important for our mental health as well as just our well-being. And so we want to learn more about why self-forgiveness can be beneficial. So we're going to be exploring that today. Okay.
Excellent. And Carole, what would you say when you start talking about forgiving yourself? What are some things that kind of come up for you about forgiving yourself?
It's the gift that keeps on giving. Guilt is the gift that keeps on giving.
A
whole lot of times. And I think that we are, especially nowadays, we're in a culture where forgiveness is not something that people like to practice unless it benefits them. Right? That is, because we're in this cancel culture now. So unless it benefits them, people don't like to exercise forgiveness, and because it's so me oriented, that oftentimes that unforgiveness transfers to us personally, where we don't even know how to forgive ourselves. So it becomes the gift that keeps on giving, which I don't think it was ever meant to be that. We ain't supposed to be walking around living here on earth feeling guilty all the time about stuff we did in 1975. Ain't nobody got
time. That part, right?
Nobody got time for that.
Nobody had time for that. I know that's real.
Nobody have time for that. But it's something that it's very, and for me personally, it's been something that I've had a challenge with through the years. And a lot of that comes from childhood, growing up, and things that we were taught in childhood. Don't sin, but nobody ever told us when you do sin, this is what it should look like after the fact, right? The aftermath shouldn't be that you stay sorry for the next 15, 20 years. At some point you got to move on from it, but it's really a belief system. I believe that a lot of us just did not know necessarily how to practice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. The belief
Yeah.
system. So now, and of course, we know that the belief system, I'm about to go all into a whole nother situation because we've talked about some books recently with, we've talked about The Big Leap,
Right.
and your upper limit has a lot to do with your belief systems as well as the four
Mm-hmm.
agreements. And the first, of course, four agreement is um, to have an impeccable speech or impeccable word. And when you're talking about your impeccable word, that has everything to do with your belief system. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we kind of like dig into like, oh yeah, I was taught this or someone told me this. But as young people, we really don't question as much. And if you did question, you the black sheep, right? So it's almost like you're seeing it's like, do as I say, not as I do. All of those kind of rules coming up, right? And so
Right.
if you have a belief and you go against that belief, I guess that's where the guilt comes from, right? Like, oh my God, I did this and now I'm feeling guilty and I can't let myself go. So people will go years and years and years not forgiving themselves. And what
Right.
they also are kind of falling apart or attributing to is a lack of love,
Mm-hmm.
a lack of self-awareness, right? A lack of self-esteem even, right? So that's a whole nother thing. But we're now going to go into how to forgive yourself, right? Because everybody's always talking about, yeah, forgive yourself, forgive yourself, forgive yourself. But now we want to talk about how to forgive yourself. And self-forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
is not about letting yourself letting yourself off of the hook, right? We're not gonna
Right.
be, okay, yeah, girl, it was okay if you did that, girl, and moving on. No, it is a sign, and it's not a sign of weakness, self-forgiveness, but it is whether you're forgiving yourself or someone who has wronged you. But um, you have to forgive yourself in a way where you know that that specific behavior was not the right behavior, but you always have the opportunity to change it. So number one, forgive yourself by understanding your emotions. Carole, let's talk about understanding your emotions, girl.
Child, I don't know if I can talk about it at 47, honey. I'm all over the place nowadays. I don't even understand my own emotions. But
I love
I do think that learning how to process your emotions is very, very um, it's very, very important. The other day, I
it.
put a thing on social media and I said that when your affirmations always point to the intentions of others, that's not a good thing,
Right.
because that means that you rarely look inside to see whether those affirmations are talking about you or talking about
Mhm.
somebody else. So you have to
Right.
know what it's about. But a lot of times we blame shift, right? And we don't know how to process the emotions that we have because we're told not to cry. We told to suck it up. We told not to feel sorry for ourselves, and so on, so on, and so on. We're told all of those things,
The natural
especially
human things.
Mm.
natural human things, right? That we feel that make us feel some kind of way on the inside, and it's okay to feel those things. And I think, as you said, one of the things we have to do is we have to learn to accept where we are. It's nothing wrong with accepting the fact that you messed up.
Mhm.
Okay, ain't nothing wrong with that. I
Mhm.
Right.
wish I wish somebody could show me somebody of perfection because it ain't none around here, right? Starting
Right.
with me. There are
Right.
no, I don't care how good you look and who your mom and them is and how much money you got in the bank. Ain't nobody,
Right.
and I meant ain't
Ain't
Right.
nobody
nobody.
perfect, right? Ain't
Right.
nobody perfect. And so when you
Right.
understand that we're all fallible, right? We're all fallible
Mhm.
creatures, and we
Yeah.
are not gonna do things right all the time. If you don't
Mhm.
do
Right.
it right in private, you ain't gonna always do it right in public. And it's
Say that,
okay.
girl. Hmm.
It's okay. It's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Now.
I was just gonna say it's something about being able to just own up to it and recognize when you've done that thing. But it's almost like,
Hmm.
when you fall down, pick yourself up.
Right.
And like you said, it's okay. It's okay because you're not perfect. But it is being able to kind of like what Naima said too, not necessarily condoning the behavior, but
Right.
just seeing it and trying to change it. And it don't mean it's not going to happen again, because you can work hard
Right.
to try it. And so that's another thing, because sometimes we see where, oh, you might have already asked for forgiveness for this particular thing, and then this thing didn't happen again. Oh, God's not going to forgive me for this or that. And a lot of times we put that thing on ourselves,
Yeah.
even if it's someone else, And I wanted to mention, as far as Islam and the teachings about forgiveness, I found this hadith in peace be the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. He said, whoever suffers an injury and forgives a person, the person who's responsible for it, that Allah will raise his status to a higher degree and remove his sins. And so we constantly have chance after chance after chance for just bettering ourselves. So I think as long as God's giving you air to breathe and you waking up in the morning and you living, is just keep trying. Just keep trying. And you can't go wrong with that. Just if you just give up, or you just feel like there is no hope for me because I just keep doing this thing or these things or whatever, just don't beat up on yourself so much. So just being able to understand the emotions is definitely something. One other thing I want to say as far as emotions, Carole, you had mentioned something about how we were raised and being told a certain thing. And so I'm parenting all over again. I have an 8-year-old. Well, I'm saying parenting at a young age, because parenting never stops. But I have 6 children, and then I have an 8-year-old at home. And so, and it's funny, he has me doing things a lot different. These children these days, I tell you. So there's a lot of talking, a lot of conversation happening, but letting them know that sometimes sharing like how I may feel about a certain thing, or sharing with him about how my day was, or how if something made me upset, or how I handle something. It's just good to show your children that you go through all these same emotions that they go through, and helping them understand how they can just kind of process it.
Right. And
So,
processing it. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
no, you go ahead. I'm good.
Oh, I was going to say, in processing it, and knowing how to show them consequence and love at the same time.
Exactly.
Right? Because sometimes, a lot of times we were just shown consequence.
All the time, girl.
Man,
and that's why people all messed up now.
no, it's just been a lashing.
I do have to say, look, it was real strong on the consequence side, but I did get the love too. My parents, they did kind of balance it out, but I do understand what you are saying, because oftentimes you do get that where, it's this one phrase came to my mind, do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing. But you're constantly being told whatever, and a lot of times you did get to be like, we weren't able to express ourselves.
Right.
You better not even look like you wanna.
Right. But it's But it's one thing in showing them consequence, right? But a lot of that is on the parent. When our children are small, right? It's on the parent to say, "I'm gonna whoop you for that," because I'm old school now. I did whoop my kids, and they grown now, so I don't care who look, and y'all can call 5444 child abuse or whatever number you're gonna call. They grown now, and they fine. They are fine. But there's nothing wrong with
we all fine. We all
fine. There's nothing wrong with showing them consequence, however that looks in your family dynamic, whether you whoop or whether you take things away from them. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it warrants you coming back to them and saying, I love you, and I just don't want to see you mess up. It made me feel, in the parent, it made me feel angry. How did you feel when you did it, and what do you feel like now that you've done it? And talking through those things, like you said, sometimes we didn't have a voice to talk about it, but I think it's important that we have a voice, because redemption, that's what redemption is all about, right? It's redemption is, Christ died, and he died for our sins. He didn't do it so we can keep on walking around here feeling guilty all the time. He didn't do that for that. He did it. He loved us so much, right? That he did it even before he knew us. Right? So that is, I just don't believe that those things are done haphazardly, because I promise you right here, I ain't sacrificing none of my daughters for nobody.
Okay.
For y'all to mess up, I'm sacrificing for y'all to mess up. No. And you can keep on. No. So you can keep on getting forgiveness from me? No, I'm not gonna do that because I'm incapable of having that much love. I'm
Mhm.
incapable of it. But I believe that, as parents, we have to show them both sides of forgiveness. We have to show them what the
Amen.
consequence looked like
Mhm.
and what the after effect of it looks like. And that means oftentimes embracing them back and saying, I believe you can do the right thing, you can make the right choices, but this is what happens when you do that. And I
Mhm.
Right.
still love you.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes just
So,
asking the children to question themselves, like, well, what do you think
Right.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
consequences should be, to kind of make them think and to participate in, well, and how long and how far and, whatnot. And so that they're able to even process it even more. It's not so much, I did that with my son the other day, and it was kind of funny because we both thought of the same thing, but like, for 2 days, you just don't have, you can't use the phone, watch TV, nothing like that. And it was kind of funny because I said, you thought of the same exact thing I was thinking. He goes, oh, but then later he came to me, he said, I changed my mind. I don't
Mm,
I said, but I just wanted to hear from you what your opinion was, but
right.
it don't change anything.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But it
That
makes
part.
you really kind of think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
So, in how to forgive yourself, we first talked about, of course, understand your emotions and then accept responsibility for what happened. We kind of talked
Right.
about that a little bit, but even in
Right.
accepting responsibility for what happened, if I want to kind of talk about thinking about like going back to like your 17-year-old self, your 18-year-old self, your 20-year-old self, right? And when even if you accepted responsibility, what does that look like, right? Because you can say accept responsibility, but does that mean that accept it in your heart and your mind? Does that mean that you have to follow up with actions? Does that mean that if you told a lie, you need to tell the truth? So people also need to not just accept responsibility for what happened, but they need to be able to process
Hmm.
what accepting responsibility for what happened means. So that to me is very, really, really important. And then as you're going through that acceptance, because I was like, it's like, yeah, how like it's wrong,
Hmm.
but you're just like, yeah, I did it, and sometimes that's where people stop at accepting responsibility. They're not like doing the next steps to move forward. But
Mhm.
then even when you do learn how to properly accept responsibility, treat yourself with kindness and compassion. And I think that this
Right.
is oftentimes when women we fall into this beating ourselves up type thing. Like
Hmm.
we gain weight. We always talk about how we
Mhm.
don't look nice or that we're fat or that we're all of these different things, or if we accidentally told somebody something that we weren't supposed to tell, then we say, oh, we say, oh, we're not a good friend, and then we go into this deep despair of like we're a horrible person and all this other stuff. Or if we disappointed our parents, and then we
Right.
go into I'm a loser, all these negative things. But no, treat yourself with kindness. And sometimes you have to, like, that's why I entitled this show like, have you looked in the mirror and said, I forgive you? Because when you can
Hmm.
see yourself as a human being, it's a little bit different than being on the inside. You're looking at yourself on the outside. And if you can accept and treat yourself with kindness and compassion, it's a little bit different.
Yeah. I think, just thinking about what you said, I think that it's really important that we learn to expand the margins of our lives, right?
Mhm.
A lot of times we set margins, and we say we cannot go out of this margin.
Right.
And when we do something that goes out of that margin, we don't know how to increase the margin. it,
Yeah.
it doesn't say it doesn't say to keep doing it over and over again. It says I got to give myself a little leeway,
Right.
so I can forgive myself. The issue is we're going to do it this way. This is how it's always been done, and I'm gonna do this. And then when I do something wrong, I'm gonna feel bad. I'm gonna do that instead of us saying, let me expand the margin and give myself a little grace.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Hmm.
mean, you got to give yourself a little grace. And when you understand that nobody can ever live a life of perfection, like nobody can ever
Mhm.
live a life of perfection, you'll expand your margins, your life margins, son, to give space for those disappointments that you have in yourself and also disappointments you have in others. it just helps when you just say, yeah, I don't, I don't like what happened to me. I don't like what they did to me, but I'm gonna give them a little grace. Let me open it up some,
Yeah.
especially if you have it to give. Now, there are
Mhm.
some people who don't have it to give. And what I mean is they may only be have enough love. They don't know how to give that love like that. Or they haven't been given they've been brought up in a family dynamic where love wasn't shown to them or something like that. So they don't know how to expand those margins. But you gotta know how to give yourself some grace. Because it's amazing how we can give other people more grace than we give ourselves.
Mhm.
That should never be where you
Mhm.
give more people more than you give yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah, that, and I think that's also belief. That's a belief
Right.
system, kind of like, because even when we look at like how sometimes we didn't see those examples of our parents or our grandparents, our aunts and uncles giving themselves grace. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was always like, them being hard on themselves. And so then that's what we think we need to be doing. Or them never crying. You never saw your parent ever cry. So you
Mhm.
think that, well, why didn't they do that? You believe that, oh, crying is a sign of weakness. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, it's like, to understand grace in its totality is
Right.
not being to understand it like, it's seeing it, right? You can teach it, but it's also seeing it. And that, I think, is all, sometimes we kind of get underneath there. But another way, another step to how to forgive yourself is expressing remorse for your mistakes. But when we say expressing remorse, I think it's more, we have something in the religion that says, if you feel no shame, then do as you please, right?
Right.
Because it's shame really that stops people from doing specific things. And
Mm-hmm.
shame is supposed to protect you. But we know now, ain't no, child, where's some shame at?
Right.
We know that there's so much lack of shame in the society, but that's
Mhm.
kind of where you express the remorse for the mistake, and that the remorse
Mm-hmm.
is not a long period of time. It's a state
Mhm.
that kind of comes, and then you get out of it. And not
Mhm.
that you get out of it quickly, but you get out of it in a way that you can then move on to make amends and apologize, and apologizing to yourself. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm understanding my emotions, and then I'm accepting the responsibility of what happened. And then, of course, I'm going to treat myself with kindness and compassion, because I know that this is a process. I do feel remorseful for the mistake. And as Nefertari was saying earlier, but I might make this mistake again. Not that you're convincing yourself, but you're still giving yourself that compassion, that grace, that if I do make the mistake again, I know that I can still make amends and apologize to myself.
And
How
just
you
having
Mm-hmm.
apologize to
sincerity,
yourself? Huh?
just having that sincerity just through the process.
Yeah, yeah.
Sincerity. Hmm.
And what are
Yeah.
some ways that you think women should learn how to apologize to themselves?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that beautiful to even think of that? Like, when you think of like how you hurt your friend, right? And if you
Mhm.
hurt your friend, you're thinking about, man, I need to go buy her some flowers. I want to buy her a
Mhm.
card. I want to buy her some chocolate, right?
Mhm.
How do you apologize to yourself?
Mm. That's
Mm.
a real good question.
It is. It is. I think you can apologize to yourself, number one, by being having integrity about it and being honest about it, right? And I think you said it all, one of you said it already before, but taking responsibility for what you've done. You gotta, because it feels good to be honest even with yourself.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm,
That's people's problem. They don't know how to be honest with them.
mm-hmm,
Mhm.
How you gonna be honest with somebody else? You can't even be honest with yourself. So I
mm-hmm.
think um, the question was how you say it
How
again,
do you
girl.
forgive
I got
yourself?
lost.
How do you show yourself that you apologize? Like, how do you, if Carole was like, if you did something wrong, what would be the first thing that you did in order to say to yourself, okay, I acknowledge myself and all these other things, and okay, now I want to apologize. What would that step be for you?
That would be me probably saying, yeah, you did wrong, but now you got to keep it moving. Let it go so you can grow. Nobody got time for that. Let
Mm,
it go. And
So
I,
self-talk. Look at yourself in the
Self-talk.
mirror when you say that. So you got to
Yes.
do a self-talk. Action step number 1.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it has to be rehearsed over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be, because what happens is it'll come back up. Something will trigger it, or somebody may bring it back up to you, or you may see something, or there's a consequence that you have to face because of what you did or
Mm-hmm.
what somebody else did to you. But I think you have to rehearse it over and over again and keep telling yourself, you okay. I'm okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did it.
The other day.
Yes, I did it. I can't do
Okay.
nothing else about it. It's over. I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay.
I'm
I'm
okay.
okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
okay.
we
This
talked
is
about
not.
that a lot lately about
Yeah,
saying
I was
Yeah.
I'm
gonna say
okay.
just that phrase alone. I sometimes in certain situations have to tell myself, you are okay. Like
Yeah.
Yes.
you are okay.
Yes. Yeah.
But,
And it's okay to be okay.
mhm,
Right. Give yourself permission to be okay.
Yes,
You
that.
gotta give yourself permission to be okay. I'm good with being okay. And this is the other thing. I don't need you to validate my okayness.
Yeah.
I can be okay without you telling me I'm okay. And a lot of people look for
right.
that validation from other people, for people to
Yeah.
tell them, please just tell me I'm okay. Do you think I'm a bad person? You
Mm,
know you're not a bad. You got to give yourself permission to be okay. It's
Right.
okay to mess up. We're
Mm-hmm.
not going to get through this life without messing up. It's inevitable.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then we definitely should look for ways to learn from the experience.
mm,
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this is so funny because like how when you do something, this is like in a small way, it's kind of like Nefertari and I, we plan events a lot, right? And so whenever if something doesn't go right with the time, we're like, we're not doing that next time, right? So you automatically learn from the experience, but
mhm,
this is kind of like the same way. It's kind of like forgive yourself. What are the ways that you can learn from the experience and move forward? And learning from the experience, so many lessons, because again, sometimes that happens because God has given you that experience and he's growing you in a way that he wants to see you develop. But again,
mhm,
how do you write this is when the journal, it's time to write in that journal, right? Learn from that experience. Okay, I learned this, that, and the other, and then reading the journal over and over and over again so that you can solidify, okay, these are the mistakes that I won't make
mhm.
again and again.
I like that idea.
Hmm.
Keeping a journal. I used to journal a lot when I was younger. And I've been processing, thinking in my mind the past week because I wanted to journal about something else, and it had its pros and cons side just on a day to day. I was like,
Right.
you need to start writing again. And then I like how you said you
Mm-hmm.
can go back and read it because then you can kind of
Yeah.
see your progress, especially with something
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
Great.
That's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And so the final step is focus on making better choices in the future. And we all know what that is, right? Just making better choices in the future. But before we'll end with focus on making for better choices in the future. But we want everybody to take away 4 R's
Mhm.
of self forgiveness. 4 R's of self
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness. And again, Neff, what's number one?
Taking responsibility. R,
Responsibility.
responsibility. So
Yes,
because
forgiveness and our number one, responsibility.
mhm.
Forgiveness and number two, Carole.
Remorse. Be
Yes.
sorry. Be sorry for what you did. It's okay.
Mhm.
Be sorry for have a repentant heart
Mm-hmm.
that says I'm sorry, because and sometimes, and this again, saying it to other people is great, but you also, because I just truly believe a lot of that starts from within.
Mm-hmm.
And when we learn how to do it for ourselves, we can do it for other people. But the
Yeah.
issue is a lot of people don't know how to experience with, they don't know how to be sorry for what they did.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that also
Like,
comes a portion of like social media has kind of like made some
mm-hmm,
people very inhumane, right? So yeah, it's okay if you look at videos of people, hurting each other or, just like it's almost like death is not like for sometimes you see people laughing at people when they die or something bad happens to them, and it's kind of like when you don't feel that, it's not that they did it, but even that sense of like sadness, it's like where's the
Mm-hmm.
humanity in that? So like remorse requires you to have some sense of humanity even, and so just
Right.
thinking about that as well, that's important, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then the third R, so we got responsibility, remorse. The third R is restoration. How do we get
Restoration.
back to restoring what was lost in that bad decision? Restoring in what was lost when we made a bad choice for us. Because again, sometimes when we do those things and we have to forgive ourselves, it really means that we have not lived in our truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you live in your truth and restore yourself back? And I know there's one thing that in relationships, not just like friendships and stuff, but really spousal relationships, this is where people sometimes find themselves making difficult decisions. You know, it's like compromise, but then at sometimes the compromise goes over the line. You crossed your
Mm-hmm.
boundary, right? And then again, you look up and you crossed another boundary, right? And then, or you let them cross your boundary, whatever it is. And so you look up and it's like 5 years later, 6 years, whatever, however many years later, and you're like, man, I wasn't living in my truth. So how do you restore that back? And I think that the more that you tell your inner, when you feel that inner self that says yes, or you feel that inner self that says no, lean into it, right? And I think that that's something that we kind of like as younger people, we're not taught that in some ways, meaning like women, right? We were
Mm-hmm.
taught like yes and no in terms of like maybe like encounters with boys and stuff like that. But
Right. Right.
the falling into the yes, the affirmation type things. Yes,
Right.
affirm that good feeling that you're feeling by speaking your voice. Those are some things that we really, really, really have to work on. As you know, and as you get older, it becomes easier to accept it. But at the same time, if you haven't learned how to do that, that's how you just lean into it and it's like, I get this because I know you got the feeling. The feeling's there. But now you got to lean into that feeling and say, yes, I'm going to do that. And it's a joke. It's like this month is November. So learn
Right.
how to say no, right? And
So
mean, and not
cliche-ish.
saying no, right? Not saying no just to say no, but no because it's not standing in your truth.
Right. Right.
Truth. Yeah. Ooh, child.
Right. But I think too, Melinda, if I can interject right here,
Yeah,
I
girl.
also think that sometimes, because restoration means to make new again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think sometimes we have to turn that R into a T. And it
Ooh.
shouldn't be restoration, it should be transformation, where
Mm.
you transform into something else because a lot of times we don't need to return back to the old person that we were. You know what I'm saying? We don't need to be
Right.
trying to restore her. You know,
Right.
Kiki
Right.
Kiki wasn't doing the right thing from the beginning. So don't be trying to go back to Kiki. You need to turn
Right.
into KK or whoever you're gonna be.
So
But I
Right.
think, yeah, yeah,
so
I
so
just
you really just answered that last R. You know, the last R is renewal.
renewal,
Very new, very similar to restoration. And like you
right?
said, transformation. So it's like a newness,
Transformation.
new all
Yes,
over again, but it's for you to start this process, going through
right.
all
It
of
looks
that.
different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks
Do it in
it
a
looks
different way.
different. Yeah, it's like the old movies we grew up on, the Transformers, right?
Yeah.
And they look like cars driving down the street, but when they Transformers,
No, no.
then they turn into
Right.
a whole robot, right?
Remember
And
Right.
that
sometimes
Transformers too.
you can start out as a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that's not your purpose is not going to be found in that car,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
It's sometimes you have to be transformed into something else. It's
Yeah.
kind of like with a potter, you know what I mean? Sometimes your purpose, you maybe think initially in life, that you were purposed to be a bowl, and you've been formed into this bowl so people can eat out of you and people can do that. And then life happens and you make mistakes and you turn into something that you never should have intended to be. You let milk sit in your bowl and it just rots and stinks, and you put all kinds of things in there that don't belong in there. And it says,
Right.
no, sometimes I got to crack that mold and I need to turn myself into a cup, because maybe a bowl just wasn't what I needed to be. I
Right.
didn't serve my purpose as a bowl, but
Yeah.
I get more out of being a cup. So sometimes we have to transform and allow ourselves to transform into something else so we don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again, or giving ourselves permission to make those mistakes. Because
Yeah.
we give ourselves permission to mess up.
Oh yeah.
We say things like, I hear people
YOLO.
like say, I'm just doing me.
That's a
I'm
popular one.
doing me. I'm doing me, boo boo. No, That's the problem. You're
Yeah.
doing you, and you have to subscribe to something in
Yes.
your
Higher than
morality has to,
yourself.
yes.
Higher than
Yeah.
yourself.
And higher than yourself never looks like you.
Right.
It
And
never looks
the
like
whole
you.
YOLO, you only live once. No, that's not
Right.
why you do that. You're not doing that for
Mm-mm.
YOLO. You got to
Mm-mm.
ask about making sure that all of that matches up, because at the end of the day, every single thing you do, you say, you whatever, lines up with your relationship between you and your Lord at the end of the day.
Right. Right.
Everything, if you can do it and you can look, this is what I used to tell my sons when they were younger. If you can explain it to me the same way you would explain it to the Lord on the day of judgment, then do it. But if you can't, then going on with that excuse. Because why are you trying to explain
Right.
it to me right now when you can't even say that in front of your Lord? I don't want to hear that. So it's like, what excuse can you say to your Lord and he will accept it? And if there is no excuse,
Right.
that's not the way to go. So that's something
Exactly.
that's our higher self, our higher self.
It is.
Something else I was thinking about, but I forgot. That's what happens when you're getting older.
Yeah.
When you want to write it down and you didn't.
Yeah.
About yeah, I forgot. So keep it moving. We're gonna keep it moving.
Yeah. It's
But
okay.
again, we're
It's
going to
okay.
go over the four P's of self-forgiveness again: responsibility, remorse,
R's.
restoration, and renewal. The 4 R's, yeah, 4 R's. Girl.
Right.
I think we had the 4 P's somewhere, but it's not today.
It's
It's
not
not
today,
today.
right?
Okay.
Right. But
Yeah.
yes, all of that good stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then
Yeah.
something else is that I thought I got it back, but I didn't. Okay, so you all have any other thoughts about forgiving yourself and what women should do as we learn to forgive ourselves?
We're Nefertari, were you gonna say something?
I love it.
I told her I like how she say my name. But just treating yourself with kindness, being kind to yourself, being compassionate, just resetting yourself and knowing and understand that you're not perfect.
Yeah.
And just being able to keep it moving every day. Just, do that thing, start it all over again, just learning to forgive yourself. You have to be able to confront yourself, with your actions, no matter what. And just be remorseful, go through those all 4 of those steps so that, and then keep practicing that same thing over and over and over again, trying to take responsibility for it, be remorseful for your actions. Because sometimes, like you said earlier, we have people to do things and they just don't have any sense of forgiveness. They don't even see that they did anything wrong. That sometimes baffles me. But, so first you have to have that feeling, that something in here that says, oh no, I should have done that. So you're, that feeling. So, being able to have that sense of remorse, and then just going through the steps, the restoration and the renewal, and then just do it all over again. It's going to be, for different. And I like how you use the analogy of, transforming, into different things. And so some days, you might have to transform 3-4 times in one day.
Yes. Right. And we're constantly evolving.
That's right.
We're constantly evolving.
Mhm.
If you're the same woman you were 20 years ago,
That's
something's
a
wrong with that,
problem.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's a problem. Yeah, that's
That's
a
right?
problem.
So
right.
you're evolving into something. You're transforming into something.
Mhm.
What that is that good or is that bad? But you're transforming into something. So yeah. Nefertari, I like what you said too about you added another R, resetting. Nefertari,
I love
you
it.
said resetting. You got to reset. I mean, that
Mhm.
is so accurate because
Mhm.
we don't even know how to reset. And ultimately, y'all remember that song Michael Jackson came out, "Heal the world,
Yeah. Mhm.
make it a better place." Where my
Mhm.
glove? You and
Okay.
yeah,
Where is your glove, honey?
I ain't got my glove on, but if I
Okay.
had my glove on, I would say that even that sentiment when we say things like heal the world and we say
Mhm.
things like that, those are ultimately forgiveness is a heart issue, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Ultimately, I believe it's a heart issue. And
Yes.
if that heart ain't right, that's why we expect people, you was talking about Nefertari, you were saying, you don't understand how people can do things and this they don't even feel any remorse for it because at the end of the day, it's a heart issue. That's why we can
Yeah.
march. Black people can march all day long. Now, this is me now. I could be wrong, but this is my belief system. Okay. I believe that black people can march all day long, and I think it's awesome. But I
Right.
think we cannot heal the world until people learn to change their hearts.
This is
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
That's
I
true.
mean, it's great, but you can put them in jail all day long. But is their heart changing? Right?
Right.
Are they striving to be better people?
Right.
When we do things that are not right? Are we striving to be better after we do those things? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? And some of us are just we're just twiddling our thumbs, and I think we've probably all been in a place where we've done things over and over again because either we did it over and over again for selfish reasons, how it made us feel, the lack of something, whatever
Mhm.
it is, we've done things that we're not very proud of. But one of the things that, even with me and my own self, right,
Mhm.
things that I'm not proud of, one of the things that I had to do, not only just take responsibility, but also remember how I was feeling when I was in that place,
Mhm.
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
everything I was feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything that I was feeling didn't make me feel good.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Neither, and some of those things hurt other people
Mhm.
as well. So I'm constantly thinking about that. Like I don't want to hurt these people no more. I
Mhm.
don't want to do that again because
Right.
I didn't feel good. In my heart, I didn't feel good hurting them, which in turn hurt me. And so I'm thinking about all of that,
Right.
all of that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And I did it again.
Listen, just cut me off when
I,
you got it.
I,
Just say, wait a minute, Carol, I got it.
Right.
Because I know I be talking, honey.
Neff, you were gonna say something?
no, I was just going. Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm glad it ain't me this time. Lord
I
have
know
mercy.
that's real. But I think what I was going to say had something to do with uh um when we do hurt other people
Mm-hmm.
in the process of whatever we've done, we still have to look at we still have to look at, okay, I got it. We still have to look at how we see ourselves. So you know how people become very defensive when they know that they've done something wrong.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
so, the older you get, the easier it is to accept that you have done something wrong, right? And if women are struggling with being themselves and not and being uncomfortable, if they're still struggling with being uncomfortable, that's a good sign, right? Because if you are comfortable and you're still lying and cheating and whatever you're doing, right? Stealing, and then you're not in a good place. And so you have to feel when you get that feeling of I think I did this. Just acknowledge it, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm remembering like all of the steps that took, like, even through my 20s and 30s, and how the answer.
Mhm.
You already know the answer. And sometimes you're looking for, again, Carol, what you were saying earlier, confirmation from the outside. But you
Mm-hmm.
really have to work on respecting, loving, and trusting your inner self.
Right.
Loving, trusting, and respecting your inner self, because your inner self will say, that wasn't right. And when all of those bad feelings come up, when you start to feel vengeance, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you start to feel jealous, right? When you start to feel almost like animosity towards someone that they ain't even done nothing to you. All of that has nothing to do with the person, it has everything to do with you. And
Mhm.
as you can examine those feelings and things like that, that's also when you can begin to forgive yourself, because again, you're acknowledging the emotion.
Yeah.
You process that emotion. But that, as women, we have to do that more. We have to do that more. We have to stop pointing the finger at other people. We have to be responsible for our own selves. And you can only do that. And you can only stand in your truth, and you can only have peace when you begin to acknowledge those feelings that don't feel so great, feelings
Yeah.
that make you very, very uncomfortable. But as soon as you acknowledge it, honey, you start
Right.
feeling
You got
better.
to do it quick. You got to do it
Yeah, you
quick.
gotta do it quick, and you just start to feel better as a person. Like, yeah, girl, I did make that mistake, but ooh, I feel so much better. Like,
Mhm.
instead of just wallowing it. Oh man, the more you do it, the more it becomes easier to do. So yeah, that's one thing we need to really, really focus on. So hopefully that
Right.
made complete sense.
Yeah, it did. It did. I was thinking about something when you were talking, Melinda, and I
Hmm.
was thinking about how we have to also be careful with people who enable us uh,
Hmm.
to to exercise unforgiveness, because sometimes we
Yeah,
have people around us that say you ain't got to forgive them for that, or even
yeah,
people that say you can't, you'll never be good because you did that. And
Mhm.
so we have to
yeah,
be careful that we don't allow those spirits around us that enable that type of behavior, whether
yeah,
it's
Glad
toward
you said that.
somebody, yes, or it's toward ourselves. Because there are people, this is for real, there are people who will enable that behavior and say, you ain't got to say you sorry. Why? You ain't got to say, you have to do something.
yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like, a lot of times it looks like we're being the weaker person
Hmm.
when we do that. And if I could be very transparent, I'm one of those people who had an issue with that, because I am a very loyal person,
Hmm.
and I love people,
Hmm.
but I've experienced a lot of things in life where I've been hurt by people,
Yeah,
um, and it's unwarranted hurt. That's the worst kind of hurt. It's
yeah,
unwarranted hurt, and people who are close in your inner circle, and you
yeah.
be looking like, why did y'all do this to me, and why did you do it
Mhm.
like that? Why did you do it like that? And I didn't even see it coming. And
Mhm.
so I've had issues, and I still struggle from time to time with forgiving people. And a lot of times I don't know I haven't forgiven them until I've seen them again. So out of
Yeah.
sight, out of mind, I can say,
Mm,
I forgive them,
right.
and but then I see them, and Nefertari, I gotta say it like Nefertari. You talk about it. It's not until we see them and something triggers it off for us, and then and then that vengeance comes back into play, what you were
Mhm.
talking about, and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff, and want to get them back, and thinking all these terrible thoughts about them, and all this stuff, and I go all the way back to my hood when I
Back in high school, right?
We all
when
got
I
a little bit
see
of
them
that. Yeah.
again. When I see them again, I be wanting to just go in, and that moment right there reminds me that I haven't done my part.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the other thing I'm realizing too is that sometimes the other hand of forgiveness is not always going to be extended out to you. And
Right.
so you have to learn not only to forgive them, but doing it in the right way. So when
Mhm.
you do see them, it doesn't stir up those emotions you were talking about, Nefertari. It doesn't stir up those emotions, and you're not back at square one again. And then you
Yeah.
got to go back home. You feeling bad all over again because you said or did something, or you thought some kind of way that you shouldn't have felt. You
Yeah.
shouldn't have thought. And so now you got to go back all over again and try to seek forgiveness again. And it's a non-ending cycle.
Right.
And it's the gift that keeps on giving. It
Mhm.
just manifests itself in different areas when you don't nip it in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Hmm.
So, Carol, as you were talking, something came to my mind. A lot of times we'll hear this, but how the forgiveness is not necessarily for the other person, but it's for
Right.
you so that you can get
Mm-hmm.
through the process. Because a lot of times we carry so much that, we actually, it becomes a sickness, and it
Right.
starts to affect the body in different places. And I know you spoke about the heart. That's like the main vessel. But it can start, really attacking your other organs and other things. You
Mm-hmm.
even know you have all this on you because you haven't forgiven that person. And that
Right.
person, they done gone on with their life. They
Right.
happy.
They ain't thought about you none.
They doing their thing. And so so being able to get through that whole process of forgiving people, because really it's about you and your health. And it
Hmm.
may
Right.
not be, sometimes we'll hear this thing too of, I forgive you, but I'll never forget kind of thing.
Right.
That's kind of a, you you might not forget, but you got to be able to not carry that in a way where it
Right.
still appears that you have not forgiven that person.
Where you haven't
Right.
released them. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And the other
Mm-hmm.
thing I wanted to say was sometimes you can be in a situation, and I know you kind of talked about, Carol, kind of talked about your girlfriends or being in a circle and sometimes certain things that happen. And we all have had those kind of situations, but being able to forgive that person, whether they forgive you or not. And it's
Right.
like
Right.
you can go through that and you just say, I forgive you. And then you just keep it moving, and it goes
Yeah.
back to what I just said, that's going to be weight on them, really.
You're
Right.
right. Right.
And I think that's
Yeah.
also why it's so important to journal some of these things because
Yeah.
sometimes it'll reside in your heart again, eating up the heart in not a good way. But when you release it through writing it out, and then you see it, and then you like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you're not aware of it until you put it on paper. And then
Hmm.
when you put it on paper and you start reading it, it looks real, 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 right? And that
Mm-hmm.
it's like goals. They say if you want to complete a goal, put it on paper. It's the same thing with
Mm.
this. So like think about putting this on paper. How can you release it? And in some cultures, they say
Hmm.
put it on a piece of paper and then burn it. Burn it. And as it's burning,
Mm-hmm.
pray it out,
The
right?
art.
Mm-hmm.
Release.
Yeah, to release it, right? To renew
Right.
that, right? That whole
Mhm.
thing. So just thinking about all of the different ways, like the things that we talked about on how to forgive yourself is just the statement, but each statement has its own individual steps. And those
Right.
own individual steps will take you. It's up to you to figure out what those next steps are. And if you can't do that, it's nothing wrong with going to a therapist and or a counselor.
Right.
And
Right.
so
That's right.
these are the times when you and even your spiritual leader, if you have to go to the spiritual leader to get, but you have to be able to work through these because if you can't do it,
Mm-mm.
you will continue to all you're going to do is continue to have black heart, black heart, black. Your heart will be so black there will be no light. And
Mhm.
guess what? People will see it in your being.
Right.
People will see it when you walk into a room. She don't have no light, right? They can tell that it's a heart matter. So yeah, let all of that stuff shake, shake, shake it off, shake it off. Okay, let's everybody shake it off. Shake off that, shake off, shake it off.
Don't get me started, honey. Get to
Okay,
shaking.
I love it. I
I
love
get to
it.
shaking.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent take. Thank you so much, Carol, for joining us today. And
Thank
before we
y'all for
go
letting
out,
me join
Enjoy
y'all.
you.
can you talk to
Thank
us
you.
really
Likewise.
quick about something that I think is important as well as women are renewing and transforming and restoring all of these different things. They can do that at your yearly conference, right? Tell
Me?
us about the T-Wet conference.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay. So yeah, you'll never forgive yourself if you don't come to my conference, bro. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I love it.
I'm kidding. But yes, I would love to invite all of you ladies out to the Texas Women's Empowerment Conference. Now, it's in Texas, but it's women come from everywhere to be a part of it. It's a whole time of worship and a time of renewal, a time
Yes.
of renewal. It's a time of empowering yourself, mind, body, and soul. And so we do this. We are in our 15th year
Yes. Say
coming
that.
up.
Yeah.
We're in our 15th
Congratulations.
year, and
Yeah.
it's always the third weekend in August. It'll be August the 18th through the 20th in 2023. But we would love, love, love to have you. You can reach us and look it up on our website at www.see, like your eyes, SEE, say as in your mouth, SAY, and then C's, SEI, Z as in zebra, E.org. Okay, C say C dot C
I like that.
.org, right?
Mhm.
And we would love to have you. And actually, it's not just for women. It's also for young girls. So any girls like ages 8 and up, they have their own separate entity in the conference. But we would love to have you. It's a whole good time, right?
Yes.
And you won't walk away feeling like you won't feel like you guilty about nothing. You gonna
Yeah.
just you ain't gonna have to walk away feeling like you gotta
Right.
forgive
Right.
yourself.
That empowerment. You're gonna feel that empowerment.
You're
Yeah.
gonna feel inspired and you're gonna feel empowered, but that's only if you come ready to receive, right?
Right.
Everything is about what you want to bring in and what you hope to get out of it. And so whatever it is you're trying to receive, I believe that you talking to the Lord is going to give you exactly what you need in that moment. And so just come ready. But I love for y'all to come. Nefertari.
I love it. Look, we may have to think about bringing Nefertari straight for the fashion show, honey. We just
Come
come
on,
in, bring in all the
Nefertari.
fashions,
Look
okay?
at me. Let me pull out my, because I ain't got no headpiece on. Let me pull this out of my. Everybody got on the headpiece but me.
That's
But
right. That's right. Get creative, honey. I love it. That's
y'all
cute.
didn't tell me about the headpiece.
You just inspired me. You just inspired me.
Did I inspire you,
You
Nefertari?
just inspired me.
Nefertari, get it. You
I'm
can
gonna have
get
to do
this
something
one.
with the. I'm gonna have to do something with these leaves.
Okay. I love it. I love you, Carole.
Yes, yes.
All right. So
But it was a
again,
pleasure.
if you
It was
want
a
to go to
pleasure.
the conference, if you're in Texas or you know some friends that are in Texas that need to be inspired, again, the third week in August in Texas, the Texas Women's Empowerment Conference 2023 is coming up. Okay. And again, thank you so much, Crown Nation, for joining us. Again, we ask that you subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and like us on Facebook. So until next time, Crown Nation, we love you and thank you so much, Carole, for joining us.
Thank
And
you,
we will see
Mwenda,
you
for
all.
inviting me. Thank you.
Yes,
I
yes. And we'll
enjoyed
see you
it.
all next week. And next week, it's fashion time.
It's fashion time.
It's fashion time. So
We're
check
gonna
us
talk
out.
about modesty. Like what is
Right.
it?
We're going to talk about modesty and modesty on
Girl, I might
all
have to bring you
levels.
back. We might have to bring you back.
Bring me
Yeah.
back, girl. Bring me back.
Okay.
You see, I'm modest. I ain't from Cleveland. I'm from Ohio. Bring me back, girl. I'm ready.
Okay.
All right. She said Ohio.
Ohio. And no
Ohio.
Cleveland. You don't see
Ohio.
no cracks, do you? I'm modest.
I
Yes.
got it. So join us next week while we talk about modesty and what it means and who modesty is for. All right, Crown Nation.
Yes.
We love you. Peace out.
All right, good
Assalamu
night.
alaikum.
Bye.
Wa alaikum salam.